As you already heard and you well know, receiving an Executive MBA is doubly challenging. You must successfully complete the rigorous requirements while also, as you heard, juggling responsibilities of your professional schedules, so you are to be doubly commended. And many of you here have done so while parenting, so you are to be triply commended. In addition to that, let me take a moment and ask you to thank all the folks who are standing around you who have been critical to your support here. So thank you. So I am pleased, but I have to say daunted, to have been asked by your dean to address this illustrious group. In her letter to me, Dean James said that, quote, she eagerly anticipates the wisdom, insights, and life lessons I will share, setting the graduates on the, quote, path to extraordinary success. Apparently, I'm supposed to collapse 50 years of lessons into 10 minutes. And so we'll do it the best we can. The other reason I've been invited, so you understand, is TIAA is responsible for the retirements of all of these faculty members. So they may be much more interested in what I have to say than you do. But let me be very clear. The truth is that you have already set yourselves on the path to extraordinary success. You were selected for this prestigious Executive MBA program because you already are individuals of high potential and indeed high achievement. You've tasted career success, and you have many years of success ahead of you. So what I'm going to do here is perhaps share with you a few observations from my own career, and we should think of this more as a dialogue than my lecturing at you. And what I'd like for you to do is listen to what I have to say. You can agree fully, you can agree partially, you can agree not at all. You cannot boo. You can applaud at the right places and laugh at my jokes, and then we'll get along just fine. So now, what are the insights and lessons of 50 years that I can contribute in the next 10 or 20 minutes or so? Well, there are 5 of them. Now, a McKinsey consultant will usually say 3, so I'm going to go to 5. First lesson, live your professional life from the end back to the beginning. I firmly believe that one needs to have what I would describe as a career vision in order to increase the odds of so-called success. If you don't have any idea of where you want to end up, you will probably then end up in a place that is unexpected. You will be driven by the serendipity of life, the desires of others, and just dumb luck. And the odds of such a random process getting you to your desired destination, or frankly, even a very good destination, must be lower than starting with the destination in mind. To be clear, your desired destination might not be as firm as a particular job, so don't think I'm sort of saying you have to be focused on one particular outcome. In my case, the spark was lit in my teens when I was inspired by the story of a man named Andrew Bremer. Most of you will not know his name, but he was the first African-American member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. And I knew then that I wanted to be somewhere in the world of economics, somewhere in the world of finance, perhaps with a chance at public service. So it was that simple vision that sort of shaped my path in education. In that regard, I have to say the odds of success in achieving any objective, and you already know this, must certainly rise when you intentionally prepare by getting the needed training as you have just done. In economics, as you know, we call this building your human capital. But once you have human capital, you can leverage it for a lifetime. So I grew up in a segregated Washington, D.C. in the 1950s. And my mother, who was an educator, would always say to me, quote, education is the one thing they cannot take away from you. And I want to leave that message with you as well. At the end of every school day, my parents would ask, well, what did you learn today? So you can imagine, at first as a kindergartner, first grader, second grader, I was really proud of skills in reading and addition. You can imagine by junior high school, I learned nothing day in and day out. I learned nothing with a surly tone that must have certainly delighted my parents. But as I got older and frankly, hopefully wiser and matured, I come to understand that the spirit of curiosity and continuous learning that my mother and father were trying to instill in me with that daily question was really important. That's why even today, 3 years after my so-called retirement, I continue to seek new challenges. Teaching economics at Cambridge, launching a project on the future of capitalism. You heard a little bit about being a venture capitalist. It's sort of an unusual set of things to do at my stage in life, but it's part of a career path in which I want to be a continuous learner. I want to stay on top of my game as you want to stay on top of your game in today's rapidly changing world. And so I've got a new mantra now. I want to spend half my time with people half my age. You'd have to guess I'm 71, so you can figure it out quickly what that means. And the reason I want to do that is I want to be inspired, as you are, by the next generation of leaders and thinkers, and you are in that group of the next generation and leaders and thinkers. But the only other point I'd make about this one is you have to have an end in sight. So lesson one, live your professional life from the end back to the beginning. Lesson two, and this picks up on the statement that you heard earlier, the phrase I would use is, it's a rock climbing wall, not a career ladder. So what do you know, right? You've all heard the description of careers as ladders, but a ladder is firmly planted on solid ground so it doesn't sway. It's very predictable, has evenly spaced rungs, and it leads straight to the top. If that sounds like your career to date, you are one of the lucky few. You heard it here, careers are filled with uncertainties. So I think of a career ladder as more like a rock climbing wall. What is a rock climbing wall like? Well, when tackling a rock climbing wall, the destination, the top, is probably pretty clear. Not always, but you know generally where it is. What's uncertain is the path. How do you get from where you are at the bottom up to the top? The angle of incline changes. Could be places we can only make progress by moving horizontally on occasion. And you've heard it earlier, the best path may be to move downward to get around an obstacle. And you also need assistance. So in my own career, there are a number of times when I stepped off the traditional path to the top, took a slight detour that was perceived by many others as being a demotion in order to move forward. But such an indirect route, as I followed, can occasionally give you an experience that will pay dividends later. So let me give you an example. When I was at McKinsey, I was up for partnership. I agreed to take a move that was not into regular consulting, but was actually back into managing some internal teams. Everyone thought this was a phenomenally ridiculous move, and in fact, had it not worked out, I would have thought so too. But fortunately, it did work out. And so here's what was going on at that moment. I decided that there were literally hundreds, indeed not thousands, of McKinsey partners who were all doing the same thing. I wanted to learn some management skills to learn how to actually lead people. Little did I know that gaining an affinity for the process and operations of leadership and how people actually do their jobs would pay off as part of my leadership toolkit back on September 11th of 2001. It was then when I was the only governor of the Federal Reserve in Washington, when America suffered the worst terrorist attack in our history, that I was called upon to make the necessary decisions to ensure that our financial system didn't collapse. I had invested a lot of time from my McKinsey years on into learning some of the critical behind-the-scenes activities, not the fancy front stuff that everyone talks about with the Fed, monetary policy, et cetera, but how do we do some of the basic mundane things, like how checks are cleared, how payments are processed, how do ATMs work. And all of that technical knowledge helped me to be much more informed as I was making the decisions and leading the Fed to keep America's banks open and our financial system running and the economy stable. So the main message of that one is, and you heard it earlier, my phrase, it's a rock climbing wall, not a career ladder. Be prepared to have some unexpected moves, take them and learn from them. Third observation, make your problem someone else's problem. No, not literally. Don't drop your problem on someone else's desk and run out the door saying thank you very much. That's not the point. The point is, if you've done your career as well as you have, you will have rapport with colleagues. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I found a conversation that begins with, I'm struggling with this and thought you might have some ideas, is often surprisingly well received. After all, you're flattering your colleagues, right? Who doesn't like to have some positive recognition? Remember, overall, it is better to share credit for success than to take blame for failure by yourself. So lesson 3, make your problem someone else's problem in a positive sense. Lesson 4, it's about followership, not leadership. True, leadership is not a title, it's not a position that is bestowed. All of you are recognized as leaders, but I want to encourage you to understand something that you probably know implicitly. Let's make it explicit. Leadership is earned by having followers. If you position yourself as a leader, you look over your shoulder and no one is following you, you're probably perceived as being somewhat foolish. So the question then is, what are the traits that others want to follow the leader? What are the traits you have to demonstrate as you go forward in life to become a leader by engendering followership? First, one you already have, expertise. People do not want to follow amateurs. The expertise can be technical. It can be things that you learn in this great program. It also could be cultural. It could emerge from context. I view expertise as a very elastic kind of concept. The second trait that attracts followers is the ability to communicate a clear and compelling vision of the destination. Individuals generally want to know where they're going to go. They will not follow if you have no idea where the leader wants to take them. So the ability to articulate a compelling vision is very important. Third one that's come up quite recently now when it talks about leadership is empathy. Why is empathy important? Because you want to engender followership, people do not want to be seen as cogs in a machine of your making. They want to understand how you're going to help them. So demonstrate that you understand where they're coming from, as I say. And finally, and obviously, leaders have to have fortitude, right? A leader should not be the first one to crack and to quake as soon as things start to turn ugly. So when I was a CEO, I told my leaders that I want them to be, quote, shock absorbers and not shock amplifiers. So lesson 4, it's about engendering followership. That makes for leadership. Final observation is that true happiness in life is not defined by the things that we value so much in this kind of organization. Professional success, obviously derived from personal fulfillment. So as I listen to folks of my generation who express dissatisfaction at the end of their careers, there are a couple of common regrets that I hear. One is a regret of not pursuing a real passion. We all know the various cliches regarding the idea of passion in work life. My favorite is, quote, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That has been true for me. Other than my family, my work is my passion and vice versa. So obviously, I would have to tell you, do not give on your passions, be they personal or professional, as you pursue your career. Why not give it a shot, right? You've all had the safety net of the superb friends and family around you, this great education, so obviously pursue your passions. The second common regret that I hear more and more is a regret that comes from the dissatisfaction when comparing your career to somebody else's career outcomes. I hear this phrase, I don't want to go to the reunion, I don't want to go to that meeting because everyone else is more whatever it may be. I warn everyone who listens to me, and I will warn you now, if you measure your life by what others have achieved, you set yourself up for unhappiness. There's always going to be someone who is richer, there's going to be someone who lives in a larger house, there'll be someone who's had more exotic trips, there'll be someone who's better looking. Well, there may not actually be anyone who's better looking in this group, but other things may be true. Look, it is probably not an accident that almost every major spiritual tradition has a version of the Judeo-Christian phrase, thou shalt not covet commandment, right? There's a Buddha quote, he who envies others does not obtain peace of mind. Or from the Quran, the prophet said, certainly envy eats up good deeds. It burns them away, just as fire consumes firewood. Or since this is a business school, let me quote from the two most famous prophets of investing, Warren Buffett and the late, great Charlie Munger, who said, of the 7 deadly sins, envy is the silliest, because if you have it, you don't feel better, you feel worse. So measure your worth on your own terms, not those of anyone else. Decide what defines success in your life, decide the path that you want to pursue, and then pursue that goal. Finally, and most importantly, you have certainly noticed that I said, other than my family, my work is my passion. Your life will be filled with plenty of opportunities to prioritize work over family. Obviously, do not do it. I doubt that anyone's dying thought is, quote, I wish I had spent less time with my family. Every study I've seen on the topic of happiness indicates that having positive relationships with family, friends, and community, not achievement, is a key ingredient for a happy life. The achievement that we're all trained to seek is meaningless without the relationships that give true meaning in life. So these are my 5 observations, 50 years condensed in about 12 minutes of a successful career and I hope a happy life. Lesson 1, live your professional life from back end to front. Lesson 2, it's a rock climbing wall, not a career ladder. Lesson 3, in a positive sense, make your problem someone else's problem, seek help. Lesson 4, it's about followership, not leadership. And lesson 5, true happiness in life is not defined by professional success, it's defined by personal fulfillment. In closing, I hope I've given you something to think about as you carry your well-earned MBAs into the next phase of your career. You may agree, you may disagree, you just can't boo. And however, if you remember nothing else out of this talk, now remember that I joined in congratulating you on achieving a major milestone in your lifelong education. To quote my mother, that's something they can never take away from you. So now go out, pursue your passions, and do Wharton proud. Thank you very, very much.